Hello guys, welcome. So this is a circle from the last video where we started building a distributed cache in C# from scratch. In today's video, we're going to be adding expiration logic, and adding some background services for cleaning up our cache. Yeah, so let's get right in. So from the last video, you can see that our key value store in our cache node just takes in a string for our key and a string for the value. So if we look at our program.cs, we can see that when we set the cache, that is the key for the particular value, we see the value is just a plain string. So we want to add support for JSON objects or JSON strings, or yeah, for objects that will be serialized. So in order to do this, we're going to have a class. So I'm going to create an object. I'm going to call that, okay, I'm building this. So I think I triggered build. Okay, so it's build complete. So let's create a class. I'll call that cache entry. Okay. Yeah, so we have a class here. It's our cache entry class. So let's make that a public class, the access modifier of type T. And we can say create a couple of properties. Let's call property T, and that is the value we intend to store. And let's have an expiration time. So public date time offset. Let's make it nullable, call that expiry time. Yeah, let's have a Boolean function, say is expired. So let's have some logic here. So it will return the expiry time that has value. So first it's going to check if the expiry time and the date time offset dot UTC now is greater than the expiry time. So if the datetime UTC now is greater than the expiry time, it will check. So this function does a single thing, checks if the value that was entered into the cache has expired. So if the datetime, the current time, exceeds the expiry time, then it has expired. So that's what this does here. So next, we're going to go into our distributed cache manager, and we're going to make some changes here. Okay. So let's come into our cache node first and make some changes. So here we have our handle request. So now this request is the command and the key and the value. So for a set request, and a command and the key for get and delete request. So I want to make some changes to this. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to take this out first. So I'm going to take this out first. And let's say string parts. Let's create a parts array. And next, let's have a JSON parts because it's going to have a JSON inside our request. So let's make that null. Okay. So we can make that null. Next, we can say, let's find the first part before the JSON. So we can say if the request dot contains this character, it means it has a JSON string inside of it. So what do? We say we're going to get the index of the point or the position in that array, or rather the position in that string where this character starts. So we're going to say JSON starts index, which is the request dot index of this character. Okay. So next we're going to get the command path, string command path. So we can say request dot substring. So starts from the beginning of that string until the point where the JSON string starts. So we say JSON start index. Next, our JSON path is equal to our request dot substring, and the JSON path starts from this JSON start index. So from where the JSON start index was registered. So from that point in the string till the end of the string, that's what will be stored in our JSON part here. So next, let's say we're going to put both into an array. So we created an array earlier, we call that paths. So you're going to say paths is equal to command paths dot split. So where there's a space in between, a space inside of the command paths, you're going to save that here. So we're having a red squiggly line. So it's saying cannot convert type string array to string. Okay. Let's see why. Command path is not null here. So let's trim this first. Okay. Okay, we can see that we have an issue here. So it says bad array declaration to manage array rank, all of this. So let's create an instance for this. Let's do new. Oh yeah, so we're not, this is the wrong syntax declaration. So it's supposed to be like this. Yes. So I think we're good. So next we can say else the paths will just be the request that splits where there's a space in between the commands there. So next we're going to switch on the command. So the command is the first item in the array. So you say paths first item in that array. So we can say set store.add try add the command, or rather the key, and the value. So our value now will be a JSON string. So it's no longer, because there's no stored item in the array. So we're going to say JSON paths. So that's it. So when we also try to retrieve on the get, so we're going to get the value, which will be a JSON string. Same goes for 3. So we're good here. We're good here. So next, we're going to have another function here. So I'm going to call it a cleanup store. Now we want to clean up data inside our cache that has expired. So data in our cache that has expired needs to be cleaned up. So this function is going to do that for us. So say public void cleanup store. So inside of that, we're going to say for each key in our stores.key or stores.keys. So let's say store.keys. Inside that, what we're going to do, let us get the value for that key. So you can say store.try get value. So we get the key and we print out the value. So after that, let's get the cached object. So we can say let's deserialize that JSON string. So JSON serializer dot deserialize this into the cache entry of type object, and we're going to pass in the value in that store that we got. So we're going to say if the cached object is not null. So if the cache object is not null, what do? We can say, we can also do a check here. Instead of having another if statement here, we can say, and let's use pattern matching here. So if cache object is null, or rather is not null, and cached object dot is, and the object has expired. So let's just add the nullable here. Can't do that. Okay, let's try and see. Let's go to our cache entry, see if we can make this a nullable boolean, just in case, so we don't get into errors. Let's come back here. So if it is a nullable boolean, okay, dot value has, it's a nullable object. Let's come back here and say this is a nullable expiry time. So let me take this out first. Come back here. So if cache object is not null and it has expired, what do? Let's remove that item from the store. So store.try remove. So we try remove the key and out the value. Yeah, so we're good here. Now this method of removal is using the expiration policy. So if the value or the object inside of the cache has expired, we remove it from the concurrent dictionary. Now, there are other cache eviction policies like the least frequently used, least recently used, and also a number of other. So after this project, you can pick this up. I would have a link in the description of this video. That is the GitHub link for this project, so you can check it out. And you can also implement other expiration algorithms like least frequently used and least recently used. Yeah, so but for now, I'll just focus on removal based on the expiration. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to come inside of our cache node, or rather our distributed cache manager. And we're going to come to the set here. So now we're going to make some changes. So we say the set originally takes in the key and the value. The value is just is a string data type. So we're going to change this to an object. And we're going to have an expiry time. So we say date time offset expiry time. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to say cache entry for object. Cache entry for object. Call that cache entry is equal to new. Come here. Is equal to value. So we're going to assign the value that has been serialized and the expiry time. So after doing this, next we're going to serialize the cache entity. So we're going to say var JSON string is equal to JSON serializer dot serialize the cache entry. So after doing this, so when we send the command, we're going to set the key and the JSON string. So it's going to be JSON string here. Yeah, so that's about what we need to change here. Now in our get function, we're also going to make some changes. So we're going to say var res, the response. Okay, I think he's already doing that here. So that instead of returning this, I can just say var res. So whatever is returned, we're going to say if the response is not equal to a string null, because that's what we set on the switch case in our cache node. So we're going to say var response is JSON serializer dot deserialize back into the cache entry of type T, which is the object. It will take in the response, and what do we do next? We're going to use a ternary operator here to say res, assign this to the response, check if the cache has expired. So if expiry is true, then return null. If it's not true, then return the value. Or rather, yeah, just return res instead. Yeah, so this works. So let's not forget to return the string. So, so we've done that here. Yeah, so that's about what we need to do for this part. Next, let's come and revamp our program.cs. Or let's do something first. Let's create the background job for cleaning up our cache. So we're going to install an extension, or rather a NuGet package. So let's come here and add a NuGet package to our console project. So that NuGet project will be called Microsoft. Let's browse here. It will be Microsoft.extensions.hosting. So we're going to search for that and we're going to install it. So we're going to wait till it installs. Yes, so it's trying to install that into our console app project. Yeah, so it's adding a package. We'll just give it a few moments and we can have it completed. Now, so the next part is we're going to be adding a background job. That background job is responsible for cleaning up data inside of our cache that has expired. So that's why we had the cleanup store function we built earlier for that purpose. So let's just apply this. Yeah, so that's all everything. So it's done. Let us create that class or that background service. Let's call it cleanup cleanup store background service. Okay, so we're going to change this public access modifier to public. It can be internal because it's within the same project, so it still doesn't change anything for now. So it's going to inherit from the background service here, and we're going to implement the abstract class. Yeah, so protected override task execute async. So we're going to make this an asynchronous task, and let's do this. So let's say console.writeLine. We would say background or background service starting. Okay, so next we'll say we'll have a while conditional loop. So while the stopping token is not cancelled, while there's no cancellation to the background service, it will continue running throughout the lifetime of the application. So let's have a list of nodes. So int ports. So we have 5,000, 5,001, 5,002. So we can say for each ports in ports, say cache node, say the node is new port. So we create a new port here. and we say node.cleanup, cleanup store. So it will clean up the cache in that node. So to do that for all the nodes we've opened, or all the cache, or all the ports rather, we've opened. So these ports or here represents different machine in a distributed system. So then after doing that, it will await, or rather it will delay this task to run after every, say, 15 seconds. And we can say add the cancellation token to cancel that, call that stopping token. So this will, okay, just leave that. So we can come down here and print, just in case our task is cancelled, it will print this. So we can say background service stopping. Okay, so cool. Yeah, that's about it. And we're looking good. Let's come into our program.cs and we need to make a couple of changes and do some cleanup here. So come to program.cs. Okay, so first I'm going to make this, I'm going to create a couple of functions down here. So I can say public static async task get. Um, I can say distributed cache manager cache. So we'll say console.write and just takes in a name. Okay. Next we can write to the console using our console.read line. So we can also say varez await cache.get and let's do this. The name of the person and -1 will be the key. Next, we're also going to say cache entry of type person. So let's create a person class here. Let's come here and say add class of person. So inside of this class, let's take this. We're going to have three properties: the name, the age, and the address. So we're going to have three properties here. Three properties. So say string name and age and address. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so next we're going to come back into our program, the CS file. So we have our person object here. So next we're going to do is we're going to say cache entry is null. So if res is not equal to, because it's returning a string value, we can say cache entry dot, no, let's do this instead. Cache entry is equal to JSON serializer dot deserialize that back into a cache entry of type person. So we'll call this res here. So next we would say let's get the cache response. Let's see if cache entry, if the cache entry is not null, then do this. Okay. So you can say name. We want to display all of that. So cache entry cache entry dot value dot name. Then we move on to the next line. Say age is cache entry dot value dot age. Then address, we would have a cache entry dot value dot address. So that's it. Else return a null string. Then print on the console.writeLine. Okay. Just do this. Get cache. Taking a cache response. Yeah, so good. Oh, so next we can have delete from the cache. So we say public static async task of delete. So it takes in our distributed cache manager. So we have the cache here. Next, we say console.write. So it takes in a name. Okay, and say we're going to read from the console. So console.readLine. Okay, so we're going to say so we can say console.writeLine. Go into the so say delete cache string interpolation. Say await cache dot delete. So delete based on the key. So say it's name hyphen or rather colon 1. We've done that. Let's not forget to add a semicolon. So next we've done for our get. We need to do for our set now. So we can say public static async task of set. So distributed cache manager cache. So inside of this function, we're going to have console.writeLine. So we're going to say, call this enter new person. Okay, so next we can say console.write. Okay, console.write, and it takes in a name space. So we can write to the console and say console.readLine. Yeah, good. So next, we're going to do the same thing for age and address. I can just copy this so that we don't just get to rewrite all of them again. So I'm going to do this for age. And for age, we're going to do something. We're going to parse the string because what is written on the console is a string. So we're going to pass it into an int. And we'll do the same thing for address. So let's call this age also. Age. Let's have this as our address. So next, we're going to come here, say console.writeLine, and we can say cert cache, and we can say await cache.set, and we can have this also the name, hyphen colon 1, and after this we can say we can add our expiry time. We can set expiry. Oh, I think what's after this is the object. So we set the key. So our object is going to be a new person object, and we're going to have our name, assign that to the name string. So do for age, this is, and also do for address. We're good. Next, we're going to have our expiry time. So we say datetime offset. So let this expire every 12 seconds. So I can say datetime offset dot utc now dot add seconds. So it expires every 12 seconds. Well, let's make that 12 seconds. Yeah, 12 seconds is fine. Okay. Well, let's make this 15 seconds, every 15 seconds. Yeah, we're good. We're still having one red squiggly line here. So we're going to address that later. So we're good for this. So next, we're going to come on top of our service here. We need to do register our background service. So I'll come here and say var host is equal to host dot create default builder that takes in the arguments. Then we're going to configure services. So say configure services, and it's going to take in a host context and some services. So services dot add hosted service. So it's going to add the cleanup store background service. It's going to inject it, and we can build here. Yeah, so that's about it. You can just make this simpler. Make this a collection, an empty collection. So next, we're going to come after this, the thread sleep, and we're going to say fire the hosts. That's the background service on a separate task. So I'm going to say tasks.add host.run async. So it's going to add that to the task. Now, so we're going to come here and we can take this out. So let's have a while loop that never terminates due to the true condition here. So we can say console.writeLine. You can come here and can do this. So I can say select the following options. 1, create new person. 2nd will be retrieve person. 3rd will be delete person. Yeah, so you can see for our option, we need to enter from our console.read line. Next, we can see instead of having another object here, we can do that here. So you say int.parse words on console as the option. Then we're going to switch on the option. So we say option. We say for case 1, what do? We say await set at the cache. Then we break that switch. For case 2, await get cache, and we break the switch. For case 3, we would await delete for the cache, break that. Then for case, no, we don't have a case 4. So if it doesn't match any of the case, we can have a default switch, and that default switch will just print on the console. Say console.write line. We can say invalid option, try again. Then we can break the default case. Yeah, so we're good. That's about everything we need to run for this project. So let's try building our solution to see if we have bugs, compile errors. Yes, it's taking a couple of moments to build that. So yeah, we're good. So build successfully completed. Let's run our console application. Yes, our console application is running. I think it's about to start. So yeah, so the nodes have started on the respective ports, 5,000, 5,001, and 5,002. We can see our background tags has also started. So it's running in the background. So let's try to create a new person. I'll call the name Sandra. Age 20. Address Mason Avenue. So we try to create that. So you see set cache. Okay, so it was successfully created. So let's try to retrieve that person. So we see Sandra. So we're waiting for our cache to respond. Yeah, so I think we got a bug here. It's saying value cannot be null. So I'm going to check why that is. I'm going to break this first. So I'm going to try to run again, and I'm going to put a breakpoint just here to know why. So we're going to create a new person. So call that Sandra, age 20, address Mason Avenue. So it was successfully created. So let's try to retrieve Sandra from our cache, Sandra person. So we do this, it hits our breakpoint. So we can see we have value inside. So next we're going to come step in. Here, so it's supposed to serialize back into this. So we're good. It works. Yeah, so because we can get back this from our cache. So why did he give us the issue earlier? So let's take this out first. So let's try to retrieve again, call that Sandra. No, we're having a bug. Okay. So we kill this. Value cannot be null. So why is that? So let's do this instead. Let's try to reduce the time to just 2 seconds. So we're gonna have a breakpoint here also. So let's know where the issue, where we have our issue. So we create a new person called Sandra, age 20, Mason Avenue. Set complete. We try to retrieve same Sandra. Yeah, so we see this is null. It is null. So we're setting this value here to null. Now, and we're saying it's not, the response is not a string of null. So this is an issue. So that's why this condition is passing, because it is not a string. So if it is not a string, it means it is correct, it is true, because this is an if condition. So what do we do here? We change this to null. And let's try to run again. Yeah, so let's create a person called Sandra, age 20, Mason Avenue. Successfully created. So let's try to retrieve. We shouldn't find anything because we set our expiry time to 2 seconds. So let's enter. So we see the response is null. So it's null, but doesn't enter. So we see that the cache returns a null value here. So let's come back here and set the expiry time to 10 seconds. Let's stop and start again. So our cache started. So let's say Sandra 20, address Mason Avenue. Successfully set. So let's try to retrieve from our cache. So see Sandra is the name. So we can see we're able to retrieve Sandra's details from the cache. So let's delete from that cache, from our cache. I want to delete Sandra from our cache. So yeah, we've been able to successfully delete that detail from our cache. So we can try to retrieve and see if it still exists. Sandra. Okay. So we're still getting this error here. So it's unable to serialize the JSON because obviously it is a null value. So let's get back into our get request here. Let's make some changes to this. So something is happening here, which is the value returned as null. So let's put a breakpoint here, or here rather. So let's try to run this again. So let's create our person called Sandra 20 Mason Avenue. So we should successfully create that. So let's delete that from our cache. Call that Sandra. So we deleted that. So let's try to retrieve from the cache. Call that Sandra. So it should hit our breakpoint here. So it returns a null value, which is good. Now, if we come in here, steps, see where we have the issue. This is expecting a string of null, but is returning a null value, an actual null. So let's kill this first and resolve that issue. So let's come back into our gets here. Yes. So in our gets here, we are saying if we have, if it's not this, then there's a response. So and if there's a response, it returns this is where the issue is. So it's supposed to be a null. We can change this. It's not really clean, but it just serves our purpose. You can go into the send command or into the cache node and make some changes for that. But I just want to make a quick change here. So I'll make this null. And I'll come back here and into our program.cs, and I'll make this small. So I would run this, and we shouldn't have any issues. So let's go to person, call that Sandra, age 20, address Mason Avenue. Yeah, so let's try to retrieve Sandra. Uh, Retrieve. So let's take out this breakpoint and just run. Yeah, so we don't have Sandra here because it must have been, the cache must have expired. So let's try to create that again. So let's say Sandra, age 20, address Mason Avenue. Okay, we set that. So let's try to retrieve Sandra. Okay, so it still returns a null value. So it's telling us it can't find Sandra here. So I think this is down to the condition we have here. So we're saying if the response has expired, then return null. If it hasn't, return this. So let's put our breakpoints here. Okay, so let's try to create a new person. Say Gabriel, 20, Mason Avenue. So we set that cat. So we try to retrieve Gabriel. So he comes here, he checks, has it expired? Shouldn't have expired. So let's step this, checks. So he sees it has expired. So let's increase our expiry time. So I think it's causing us some issue. So let's increase our expiry time to 25 seconds. So let's run. Okay, so let's go to new person, call him Gabriel. Say age 20, Mason Avenue. So let's try to retrieve Gabriel from, yes. So it can go past this. Yes, it returns that. So we're good. Yeah, so it returns Gabriel. So let's delete Gabriel from our cache. So say Gabriel. Okay, so it's deleted Gabriel. So let's try to retrieve Gabriel again. Yeah, so we see we can't get Gabriel because it has been removed from our cache. Yeah, so that's about everything we would take for today for our cache, distributed cache. So today we looked at building it, adding expiration policies to our distributed cache. We created a background job to clean up our cache. So yeah, that's about what we have for today. In our next video, we're going to be looking at replication. We're going to be discussing the importance of replication for our distributed cache, and we're going to be implementing that on this cache here. So yeah, that's it for now. Bye.